guys, let me just adjust the brightness for you, set you up in place here, and we are going to show you a new wing. Okay, Batwing. It's going to be sick. Then I was going to make a tail. I started with this, I liked it, but by the time I got to the shape I wanted, it was too small. So I went to size it up. Only believe it or not, when I went to size it up, I started with this and I ended with this. I decided when I started to cut it that I wanted a different shape and just went with my instincts. It's why I do it. It's the same way I came up with the wing. I actually started with a slightly different shape, which I showed you guys, and then went on to the next step and developed that wing. This is how you develop, okay? And this works. You can design either one of these, would have worked, but look at this. It's really rounded. This is a much shallower angle, giving it more surface area. And instead of a straight front, I actually designed it to sit like this on the aircraft, but it would work both ways. This makes a lovely control surface, and you'll see what I mean. So this is the rear, or this is the rear, and in either case you have a wonderful aileron that will give you 3 tips in the air before it gives you the whole surface, which makes this a really good setup for a beginner 4-channel airplane, guys. It will be locked in. This is the tail, and as you can see, they look pretty darn good together. But I think I might do it like this. Now here's the trick. If you were to take a setup like this, mount it way forward, split this rudder in half, you could set it up with ailerons, which means here you have a big control surface. So just for the record, I'm going to show you guys one more time how I set up my control surface size. I already know, because I've basically taken a measure, that I want my control surface to be from here up. But just because you're doing that doesn't mean you have to do it on a straight angle. I can do it like this, which is what I'm going to do, right there. But you could choose a different angle, right? So you'll notice on one side I've got a nice clear crisp line, and on the other side I don't. Now we're going to gently, by pressing our thumb into here, and gently fold it out and press it over to the other side. Okay? And now we've got that fold. And now we're going to take the fold, and I'm going to put my scissors in the back of that fold, again precisely lining up this mark and this mark. You can even use a part of the scissors that curves slightly and get really neat shapes out of this. This is a great way to do this, guys. And then you just gently press it down, and now I have my control surfaces set up. Not quite, but we're going to cover that in later videos on these build series. Right now I'm in the prototyping stage because I want to come out with my own line of RC aircraft. But there's a reason I do. I'm a good engineer. These are actually really good ideas and will work really, really well. These aircraft are going to be really sweet to fly, and I'm excited to see you guys be able to just build these if you should want to. So this is one option. Looks pretty good. This is the other option. Also looks pretty good. And both will be locked in. This one, the tips are closer together. This one, the tips are farther apart. I actually recommend you try them both. You will find when the leading tips are pointed forward, it will be a sleeker, more aggressive aircraft this way. It's actually designed that way. And when you flip it around, it's a slower, less aggressive profile in the air. With the forward tips, it will have more resistance this way. The tail, one direction, and it's meant to be put on one way, sorry. But then you look at the wing, and you realize the wing is exactly the same kind of deal, where the wing is designed with these sharp in the back, and if we flip it, it's a very different shape now that will have slightly higher resistance due to the more curves, plus the shape of them are like a fish hook. So it catches air along the leading edge and directs it. But because it does, it directs it to the wing tips, which will have VGs, and the airflow here will be sick. It'll be really locked into the air because of the way I'm going to do the VG package and because of the way the wing is designed. That being said, I can flip this wing around to get different profiles in the wind. The less of these I have, the better. So this is actually the faster layout. and this would be the slower layout. But if you lay out that with that, tell me that doesn't look cool together, guys. This is going to be a neat looking airplane that'll be a little bit bigger than my Spit. By about 1/4 of an inch in wingspan, if that, a couple of millimeters bigger than the Spitfire. And so far, it and the Eagle are my two biggest. The Eagle is a little bit bigger in point of fact, but it's about the same size as this one. I was going to say a little bit bigger than the Spit. So this is another good build. This is 11 1/4, I think, or 11.5 inches when it's finished. And it's going to be gorgeous. You guys are going to love this. I actually am going to be flying it like this. I want the faster configuration, which means my tail will also be like this. So I'll fly with these at the trailing edge on the front, and these at the front, and the two of them together in the air in that orientation will look sick. Because this is mimicked here and pretty close, and it makes a sick shape overall in the air. In addition, the tips, look at the angles the tips come to, guys. Those are really sick tip angles, and they're not straight. This is going to be a great, great, great little airplane. I'm actually really excited about it now. And when I started, I wasn't. I was the opposite. I was a little nervous. I wasn't going to get it right. I always am. Here's my initial template. You can see the original drawing I made wasn't exactly what I came out with. Later on, I refined the drawing, and then when I went to cut it, I changed it significantly as I did so, but it's still within the realm of my original design, which was this. Much narrower tips, but then I decided I'd go for a beginner profile, which meant much bigger tips, so you have less roll rate. The more surface area you have out at the tips, the less roll rate. That's why you'll see on the Eagle build, the beginner wing I tell you to build first is actually a very lifty and easy to control wing because it doesn't want to snap roll on you. This is the same kind of thing. Well, I actually settled for right in between because I want to have a beginner profile on one side and out of the same template an intermediate profile. And that's actually what this gives. It gives you one template that you can flip over that will make it a little faster. With the wingtips swept forward, it's a different handling machine than with them swept back. And swept back is the faster way. So if you want it swept back, do what I did. If you want everything swept forward, it still looks really cool, guys. I mean, this is going to look sick. And so, you know, you could pick it either way. In the end, you can change your wing shape. You can fine tune it, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to show you the last bits of this. So here we have this guy. Very important, and you want to keep one handy. This is going to be your spar. If I can find my measuring tape, I will show you the length. But there's not much need. I will show you the overall length at the end of it. And in this video, we're not going to do any more than that. I just wanted to cover the finished product, basically how it looks and what the shape of it's going to be. Otherwise, these videos end up getting really long, and I do want to make it a fairly short video. But the extra pieces from this, never throw away pieces, guys. Now, this is yet another design I had for a Batwing, and I really like this wing with the rounded tips, but it also made me want to do one with square tips. And you can see these are very different in design. One is a much straighter edge. You guys could build this one, and it would be your absolute beginner profile. This is a more advanced profile, either way you cut it, but still a good flying airplane that would make a great beginner aircraft or a great advanced aircraft. Also, these angles are really important on this particular build, guys. It looks simple, and it is, but you need to get the shapes right. This is a lot more forgiving. You could make these just about anywhere on the wing, make them any depth you want, but the shallower you make them, the more surface area you leave it, the slower a roll rate it'll have. Additionally, see how tiny those ailerons are? Where they're at the tip? When that tip comes up, you'll get a tiny little effect from the ailerons. I would actually make them bigger than that proportionally, but this is a good way to go if you want to get really, really sensitive ailerons that aren't too sensitive and won't snap roll the airplane. You can give it just a little, and it'll just lift that tip and lower the other tip, and it'll gently turn. And the more you push it over, the harder it'll go. But it'll never be as snappy as something that has a solid aileron that's a big surface, because that's a lot of surface area deflection counts, and the amount of force that's in that deflection is what we want to adjust. So for me, I want a fair amount of force in the deflection. So when the wind is coming over it, this little surface dipping up and the other one dipping down, that little tip won't really do much for deflection. By the same token, when we look here, I'm going to be having this part forward, which is how I actually recommend you build it. And I'm going to build my aileron from here to here. It's going to be a big aileron, but it's going to have a tip so that when I'm flying, I can just lift the tip and you get this little triangle of effect that's going to be really, really effective and will work really well. And at the same time, if I want more surface area for a harder effect, meaning a faster roll rate, I can just push harder into the controls and it'll give me that. It also makes it really easy to set this up without any rates. It'll have built-in rates given the design, which means you could fly this on the cheapest possible remote. I am designing it to be 4-channel, but I am designing a second one, and I have the material here to build it. So this and that will be a totally different version. This will be the intermediate and advanced version based on how you flip it and how you set it up and the engine and battery and all that stuff, and how big you make your control surfaces. And then this one will be the beginner model. And you can see why. It's going to have a lot more surface area. Even the drawing has more surface area than the full-sized wing here, so that should show you something. And you'll see the difference of the base of the wing, right? So in reality, I want to make this bigger. If I make this size, it won't be much different to fly than this one. It'll have slightly different characteristics. This one will fly amazing knife edge. The reason these have these little fish hooks here is because when you're hanging here on the air, you want the wind to catch here, so it doesn't just tend to drop out of the air. This shape is actually engineered to help with that, and it will. That being said, that's it for this video, guys. I will show you the full build, but I will say to you this. You do not build a little tiny carbon spar for this build. You do not. You use one of these guys, and look at the difference. One is feather light, and the other one has a little bit of weight. And I actually want a little bit of weight on this build. I also want the surface area, and I want enough length that I can hang the amount I need over the nose. This is a big wing, and it's a tail heavy wing, and it'll need more nose weight to balance it. So you're going to need about that much, 1.5 inches, 1.3 at least, overhang, and then you're going to want enough room to your tail, which in my case is going to be about 4 inches, and if you look, I don't have that here. So this would not be long enough for the purpose I want to use. So make sure it's also not as thick as the wing. It is. It's just slightly thicker than the wing. It's like 1.5 mil, and this is 1 mil. So it works out. They're actually both 1 mil. So I'm not really having a lot of room to glue. If it was even 1.5 mil, that'd be technically better because it gives you a little more room for adjustment on the spar and still be on the spar. Whereas with the smaller rod, you really don't get that. Anyway, that's enough design considerations for this video, guys. Thank you for coming to visit RXD. Remember, like, share, subscribe, because I will teach you how to build really cool stuff really, really cheap. Once again, my little workstation.